Hello everyone! So I asked my friend Elise, what should I make a video about today? And she said, how about picking out the perfect gift? Now, I don't make any claims to picking out the perfect gift every single time. I've given some real duds. But as I've kind of gone on in my gift giving life, I have realised certain things that have had more of an impact on people and the things that have had less of an impact. It's not always possible to give gifts to everyone you'd like to, and there have been years when I haven't had as much money and given very small, inexpensive things, or things that didn't cost any money at all. And then other years when I've had more money, like a Christmas bonus came in right before I was going to buy my Christmas presents, and so been able to spend more money on those Christmas presents. But I have found, and apologies to sound like a cliche, it is the gifts that I didn't spend as much money on that are the ones that people mention in years gone by. But having said that, I also want to say that I know that time is in itself a luxury, especially if you're working retail or in a hospital at this time of year. Then it can be really, really wild hours, like really long days, and you don't necessarily have time to come home and make a custom gingerbread family for someone. So more than anything, I want to just throw out some things that I like to think about when I'm giving gifts, and also a couple of ideas that I've done in recent years that I think have been really fun ways of kind of crossing both of those boundaries. But then I also wanted to throw it open to you all and see what your ideas are and the way you think about gift giving and whether you give gifts at all. So here are some questions that I like to think about when I'm giving a present. First one, the most inscrutable, obvious and broad one: what would the person you're giving a present to like? I have to remind myself sometimes of that though, because when I'm giving a present, I often am thinking about something that I would like and the kind of colours that I would like or the textures that I would like, and I stop. Even though I want to give them something that's very clearly from me, I kind of stop thinking about them and I put myself at the centre of it. Another thing I like to think about is whether it's this year or in the last 5 years or in the last 10 years or even in the last kind of couple of months, is there a shared experience that you have with this person that could somehow influence the gift that you're giving? Is there something that's really precious to you and valuable to you that could, somehow play into it? And then when you're thinking about your gift giving overall this year, or even just for that specific person, do you want to make something or do you want to buy something? Or do you want to do some kind of combination of the two? That, I think, depends more than anything on the time that you have between now and when you want to give the gift. Another important and obvious question: what's your budget? What's your actual budget? Not what would you like to spend, but what money do you have right now that you can part with while still being able to pay rent and buy food? And when you're planning presents, if you're making something, factor how much it would cost to spend money on the materials, or in the case of baking something, how much do you need to get all the ingredients for something? And if you're presenting it in a jar, how much do you need to spend on a jar, or do you have spare jars lying around? All those little things are good things to think about. Sometimes I think worrying about those things in your head can make you very anxious and stressed about it. So I like to sit there with a piece of paper and just write out exactly what I'm aiming to spend on something, just so it just gives me a clear idea of the cost, and then the thoughts are on the page in front of me rather than just swimming around in my head. A couple of other questions that I really like to think about when I'm giving gifts is who made it, and how was it made, and where was it made? I think this time of year, especially if you're buying things on Christmas Eve, it's very easy to panic and just pick up any old cheap thing that was probably made in really bad conditions and actually won't last that long. With things like Etsy and the Little Market, there are definitely lots more options for buying things from local artisans or that are fair trade, but that's also not always possible. It's just worth factoring into your thinking, I think, like, do I know where this was made and how this was made, and how does that factor into what I want to give and how I want to give it? If there's somewhere that you've always wanted to go with someone, or you have a really good memory of going with someone, then is there a way to connect that to your gift giving? And then all of this ultimately, I think, boils down to, what do you want to say with what you're giving? What is it that you're trying to put into words when you give an item or a thing you've made or an experience or even a card to someone? What is it that you're trying to give? A lot of the time when I'm trying to figure out a present and I'm trying to work out what it is I want to say, I actually write the card out, or like at least the words I would put in the card out first, because then it helps me understand what it is I'm trying to give, or kind of like, it's almost like idea generation. I think in doing that, it helps remind you of all the moments that you've paid attention, a kind of like close focused attention to that person in your life throughout the past year, since last Christmas, if you knew them last Christmas. Now I'm just singing Last Christmas in my head. So if I'm stressed about what I want to give someone, especially if I think that they've probably already got everything, I don't know if they'll like it, and I feel self-conscious about what I'm giving, or I feel frustrated at not having enough money to give the thing that I want to give. When all of those things pile on, I'll stop, I'll write a little card, and then from then I work out what it is I want to give. So there have been times that I've made things. There have been many years that I've made gingerbread people that I'm going to do actually again, hopefully tonight, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. And they're one of my favorite things to give because the ingredients are relatively inexpensive and you can also customize them by doing little different icing. Another thing I did for a couple of years in a row with my immediate family, with my mum and my sisters, was pass along a book that reminded me of them or that I thought that they'd really enjoy. My family aren't massive readers. I'm definitely like the bookish one of the lot. So it was fun to go through my books and pick out things that I think they would really love and explain a little bit about why I thought that they would love that book. I'm a book giver overall, whether that's first-hand books, second-hand books, any handbooks. I love giving books as presents for people of all ages. It's absolutely my favorite thing to give. I definitely feel like with books there are so many opportunities to explain to someone why they're special to you, even if you're not saying it directly to them. Why a book made you think of them, why you think they'd like it, a review that you read about a book that you may not have read that reminded you of that person, while also giving something that they will enjoy in private, in the private experience of reading, which kind of only happens in our own heads, unless you're reading aloud, in which case you're giving someone an experience between them and someone that they care about as well. So I'm a big person on giving books, and they don't have to be new books. I think a lot of that is how you wrap it, whether you write an inscription in it, I don't know, what else you do extra to make that feel special, and a lot of what you do to make it feel special is how you give it. Not necessarily having luxury wrapping paper or anything, but just taking the time. And it doesn't have to be half an hour, it doesn't have to be 2 hours, it doesn't have to be 5 hours. It's spending time in a short, focused way. That can also matter too. And to be honest, when you're giving a book that you have read, or a book that you have spent time thinking about, or something that someone's recommended to you, you have already put in a lot of time into that. The time kind of is carried with it. It's not necessarily just the time you spent doing the giving. So that's kind of how I think about it. I look forward to wild disagreement and maybe some other ideas for gift giving as well, especially when there's only 1 week to go. And many of you are celebrating other holidays as well. One thing I just remembered, I still owe my sister, one of my sisters, a massive jar of granola. That was a present I gave a couple of years ago, and because I wasn't in the UK to do it, I haven't done it yet. So yes, those are some thoughts on giving presents. I've got to go and clean my flat. It's kind of a mess. All right, bye.